So I hope these special groups will be able to benefit from the few ideas I can unpack. Let's try moving this. Okay. A little bit of my background. BJ was right, no? I've been professionally working with kids since '97. So don't count na lang my age. It's considerable. And my degrees prepared me actually to be an early interventionist. So I'm the person who will accept a newborn baby who was diagnosed with disabilities, and then we help the child until it's time for me to transfer the reins to another person who takes my place. Hopefully that's a school. So the goal for people like me is to leave the kids thriving in regular schools. So perhaps that's the opportunity why I was asked to give this module. We're going to look at the brain and mind connection. If we're going to separate the two, they're very related. But if we're going to separate the two, if you think genetics or physical organ, that will be the brain. It's responsible. It's a very key organ of the nervous system. But if we're thinking of functionality, that would be the mind. So how you use the brain, the way you think, feel, and choose, that is the mind. There is a very good author. Her name is Caroline Leaf, and she said your mind can actually change your brain. It can influence the way your brain responds. So since we are unlimited in the way we think, there is always hope. Now we can nurture both the brain and the mind. For me, mind will be four important things. There will be motivation, there will be imagination, nutrition, and discipline. I hope there will be enough time to discuss this well, but do not limit yourself to what you learned tonight. I'm sure we will just introduce the ideas and you can find more input doing your research after this. So the first part will be motivation. I wrote there, nurture intrinsic motivation. Um, what is intrinsic versus extrinsic? When you give a reward because there is a good behavior or a good score, that's extrinsic. And if you keep doing that to a child, the child tends to work to please you. And most of the time, when you ask, I'm a teacher, when I ask students, why do you want to be an honor student? They would say, it's mommy's goal. So it's usually like that. But what we want to nurture right now is intrinsic motivation. That means you are encouraging the child to do his best because it will make him feel good to be doing his best. There's another author, Daniel Pink, who said intrinsic motivation or drive is influenced by three things: purpose, autonomy, and mastery. I will unpack that. So if we're thinking of purpose, we're thinking of setting the agenda. Let's be clear every time we talk to a child. What is the goal? What is the task? What is the finished product? Sometimes if we have everything clear, it will be a very easy transaction or a contract. The child will comply. Another thing, well, I usually ask this to my students, what is the first real word? The real word of the child is not the name mama or papa. It really is the word no. As soon as the child understands no from us, we actually taught him, he will use it powerfully. So autonomy for us is to think of choices, because every parent's dream is to have a child who is compliant or cooperative. When you provide acceptable choices, you encourage cooperation and you also limit the no. So for example, you don't give a choice like, what do you want to eat? Ice cream or eggplant? That's not fair. We know what we'll lose. So you might want to tell the child, what do you want for dinner? Do you want eggplant or do you want carrots? So at least the child is busy choosing to do before he just says, I don't like. If we're thinking of mastery, we have to be sensitive to effort and progress. So what I would like to suggest is you measure it. If you measure something, you improve it. So for example, you want a bedtime that is predictable. Did you notice since March, the kids are sleeping later and later? They're waking up more irritable. And now you're worried that this will be the new normal for them. And when school starts and school, even online, will dictate the schedule, it will be a struggle getting them ready for their class. So you measure it to improve it. You get the child sensitive about the time he goes to bed. And another thing, if you want an early bedtime, you recognize it to encourage repetition. Whatever we pay attention to gets repeated. So, for example, you tell the child at breakfast, thank you for sleeping as early as 8:30. You're rest well, and then we will be able to learn well today too. So every time the child remembers that you're also happy, she had 8 hours of sleep, she will probably assume that responsibility later on. Another thing I'd like to add is reflection. John Maxwell said, when you reflect on an experience, it becomes an insight. So to help us, if you are working with a child, you are partners, to help us evaluate our effort, let's ask ourselves, did we do our best? Because when we ask ourselves, did we do our best to sleep early? Did we do our best to eat well? Did we do our best to write our sentences? It invites our best effort. So hopefully, if that is always your dialogue with the child learns to regulate himself. The next part of mind would cover imagination. So John Maxwell said growth is intentional and it actually starts by asking why. Do you find yourself being asked why a lot? No, why is actually an intimidating question, but I would suggest if you're the parent or if you're working with the child directly, that you answer the whys honestly. Let's say you're limited because you have another schedule, the time is limited, or your energy is limited because you're already tired. You can ask the child to only ask you why twice. Give him it. You can say, you can ask me twice, and then you have to ask me why another time because I do that. So it could be like that. Because right now, most houses involve parents working from home, kids studying from home, and then chores still need to get done. So the time really gets limited. Another thing, no, when you nurture curiosity and creativity, you can actually teach using different senses. I highly suggest you think of multiple senses when you're about to teach something. So you can ask yourself, how can we see this lesson? How can we hear this lesson? How can we touch it, smell it, taste it, or even move with this lesson? So um, the wonderful thing about learning from home is your props are maybe in the left. If you're teaching learning from smell, you can encourage the child to smell something like an apple, corn, milk, and the child will realize that certain smells mean certain food, and they might find that more interesting than reading text. So another thing you can work with in nurturing creativity is working with relationships and patterns. When you describe how two things can be similar or different, you reveal relationships, and actually it cements learning. It makes learning very meaningful. I'll give a simple example because I'm assuming your child is young. So you can have a little game like, how are socks and shoes? Then the child will think. If his vocabulary is limited, I would suggest you give a wrong answer, but it's already a prompt. So I might say, oh, they go on your head. So the child will respond, think body parts. Then hopefully the child will say, no, 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 they go on the feet. That's a pattern that we can break. Devil's advocate. How are they different now? So the to this vocabulary again, and they will say socks are soft. So this allows them to use adjectives, and shoes are hard. Or maybe something is light, socks are. So patterns all help us explore what can go together. And say sandals, No? Twist it. You can say, now that we have sandals, we have slippers, we have socks, we have shoes, which one does not belong? This is harder actually, no, in a series, but the child will be challenged now to find what differentiates the socks. So maybe he will say the socks would be different because I can wear shoes, sandals, and slippers outside. So now, not to finish the process, you can say, really? So let's test that theory. Can you wear your socks outside? So he wears it outside, he does a little experiment, and he says, I can't. No? It's painful. Outside there are rocks or mice got wet and I don't like my feet getting wet. So this is actually a very concrete, no, memory for a child. When later on they experience science and other concepts, they can draw on this memory. Okay, we covered motivation, we covered imagination. The next part is nutrition. The goal actually is optimal health or your best health possible. Why is it like that? Because we have our genetics. And Ross Walker would say genetics is like a loaded gun. Huh? What pulls the trigger is your lifestyle. I think marriage vows, no, say in sickness and in health. Why is it like that? Because we share habits, make us healthy and also so, what should we do now that we want to be as healthy as we can possibly be if we can only manipulate our lifestyle? The first thing I would suggest is water. No? 70% of our weight actually is water, and 75% of our brain is water too. So it's very important that we keep hydrating our brain. Sometimes you feel hunger or you feel tired, and then you just drink water and you will realize you're not hungry anymore and you're not tired. So that's how important water is. That's why it's also very important to invest in safe and clean water. This is a very tricky issue because most water regulations are not implemented. So you really have to study, what kind of water you will provide for your family. Another thing is to eat smart. No? That means eating more fish, eggs, nuts, and berries. So what do they have in common? They're very rich in DHA, docosahexaenoic acid. This is like brain food. No? So what kind of fish? No? Tuna, salmon, mackerel, sardines. No? If you have a budget, you can boil eggs. That still has DHA. Walnuts will be rich in DHA, and purple fruits and vegetables. You have your berries, your eggplant, your broccoli, limit blood flow to the brain. And by limiting blood flow, you limit also the nutrients going to the brain and also oxygen. Okay? I also suggest that children, no, and also the family will take organic supplements with phytonutrients. So why phytonutrients? Phyto means plant. Nutrients are life-enabling substances. If you look at creation, we will notice that plants have the ability to heal themselves and they live longer. If we're not cutting trees, they will outlive us. So there is really nutrition in plants that can help us achieve optimal health. The World Health Organization recommends that we take more than 5 servings of fruits and vegetables daily. They actually want us to focus on quality, like these have less chemicals in them, and variety. They prefer 5 colors, no, a day. And if we're going to do that, that means we're going to eat purple fruits and vegetables for brain health. And every day we will also eat something yellow and orange for vision health, and something red for heart health, green for cellular health, and white for bone and joint health. You're listening to it and you're probably having a conversation with somebody beside you already. That's quite a challenge. Yes, I agree. I live in Cebu and it's a challenge finding color in the supermarket right now. And if you can find them, sometimes they're poor quality, they're overripe, or they're very expensive as well. So that doesn't even count the fact that feeding children fruits and vegetables might be a challenge. Most kids are actually picky when they eat. They have allergies and some only eat processed food. So what we need to do is to take supplements. We supplement to fill the gaps in their nutrition and to make sure they are getting the antioxidant doses of vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients. Most kids also will not eat fish. So if they don't like to eat fish, we can also give them omega-3 or DHA. This is a very good book if you can find it. She actually wrote a list of questions to ask when you are studying the different supplements that are available in the market. Because just like water, regulation is not so strict. And everything about supplements have controversy. So it's best that you are careful about what brands to trust. And she said something very practical. She said, sometimes the very best source of DHA will tend to be supplements. Why will it be a supplement? Because we recommend only 1 to 2 meals with fish a week. Why is that safe? Because we have to admit that our oceans are polluted, and the bigger the fish, the more heavy metals they contain. So if we're feeding children more frequently fish, they might accumulate a lot of mercury in their body, and that's not going to help them cognitively. So we want to limit the fish they eat, but we want to give them DHA every day. So that's why supplements are the best alternative. If I were to choose the best kind of DHA for children, I would recommend Brainiums. This is not available in our country. Let's pray it gets here. We're very creative trying to bring it to the country. We have friends who help us access the product. But this product is designed for children. If they take 4 a day, they already get about 150 milligrams of DHA, and that will improve significantly learning, concentration, and memory. And what parent doesn't want that to improve in his child? Now, the wonderful thing about Brainiums is it has fun flavors. They use natural fruits, and there's no aftertaste that smells like a fish. Why do we trust Brainium? Because it's manufactured by Nutrilite. I actually studied this brand for more than 10 years already, and I'm quite impressed with their history. In the first place, they invented supplementation. They had this vision that we can take certain kinds of food that will help us overcome our genetic predisposition. So for more than 80 years, the focus was always on natural and food as a supplement, not chemicals. They grow the plants in the oldest certified organic farms. They harvest more than 170 plants at the peak phytonutrient capacity. They process the plants into supplements with good manufacturing practices voluntarily, that's not regulated. And the best part, because we recommend DHA to children, they are certified by the Council of Responsible Nutrition to be free of heavy metals. So you don't have to worry that your boy is getting brainiums and getting mercury as well. They don't use artificial flavors, no sugar, additives, and preservatives. So what is available in our country? The following are available. For a child who's a picky eater, you can give them the daily multivitamins. It's called Kids Vitamins and Minerals. They just chew 1 to 2 tablets a day, and they get all the recommended doses for vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients. When you give them chewable fruits and vegetables, 1 tablet is enough to give them the 5 servings of fruits and vegetables. So even on lockdown, with limited produce available to buy in markets and supermarkets, you can already guarantee that your child is getting what World Health Organization wants. Acerola C is actually a chewable vitamin C. This boosts our immunity against viruses and bacteria. It's very good for controlling asthma, respiratory symptoms, which is very necessary right now that we are undergoing a pandemic. And we also have access to our version of DHA, the omega-3 complex. This is recommended for 12 years and older. No? But with supervision, maybe you can be helped, no? How to give it to a younger child. The good thing about omega-3 complex, it gives 120 milligrams of DHA, which also improves learning, concentration, and memory, and even wards off depression. We have more kids right now actually suffering from depression because they are isolated. The last in mind is discipline. Now, when we are looking at discipline, we're looking at two sides, no? The self-control, the I will not, dot, 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 and the willpower, the I will, dot, dot, dot. So you have to nurture both at the same time. For example, I will drink water. No? That's willpower, which means I did not drink a flavored drink. Okay, so the best drink actually for the brain is really water. So if you're counting how many glasses of water you take in for the day, hopefully it is distracting you from drinking your favorite chocolate milk, your juice, and whatnot. Okay, um, Charles Duhigg mentioned that our brain accepts what is familiar. Okay, so if we want to grow in self-discipline, we have to camouflage every new habit because we don't quit habits, we replace habits. So if you're going to camouflage, no, you're going to give something familiar at both ends and something new in the middle. So for example, a child wakes up, brush teeth, and eats breakfast. So he likes that. He was probably hungry when he woke up. He would like breakfast. Breakfast is the reward. So if you want to add activity, you want this child to maybe trim down because maybe they have gained some weight since March, and you have an exercise bicycle. So you want the child to wake up, brush his teeth, and now you're inserting the cycling. He will go on the bicycle for 15 minutes, then he smells breakfast. Breakfast is done. So that's how you introduce new habits. And hopefully, you just delegate the task. The responsibility for introducing a new habit, which probably needs at least 21 days, is the parent's responsibility, or the teacher, or the therapist, or the yaya, or whoever it is. It's always our responsibility. We only delegate tasks to kids. What happens after 21 days? Maybe the child's body will remember, it kicks in as a real habit, then the child shares that responsibility with us. So that wraps up actually half the things I wanted to teach. No? I wanted to help you set your mind towards motivation, imagination, nutrition, and discipline. And hopefully, this will help you focus on the next steps. Now, what are we going to mind or be concerned about? We will look at the habits of the child, exercise, his lifestyle of learning, and praying. So, habits. Habits can help and hurt children. So, what do? We can choose habits to replace those that hurt them. So the first thing we can do is maybe establish a study habit, hopefully before classes start. Because they are studying from home, they will still be disorganized. They have to have a sense of order, a routine that will actually be born out of this balance, how the school expects the child to participate and how the parent can help the child work. So maybe the very first thing you can do is to establish a study area and make sure it's tidy. Now that the child will know that he is at work when he works there. So another study habit for kids maybe is to learn to highlight their books. We say color. We color our books. Maybe they can highlight the important words or they can highlight the important concepts. This helps them skim. They don't need to read every line again, especially if this is a new reader. They can just go back to the highlighted word that they need. Okay, another study habit that you can explore with kids is making notes. They can write their notes. They can even draw their notes. I have students like that. They like to draw their notes, so they're more motivated making notes. Another thing is to explore listening to audios. We might as well get kids using their gadgets properly. So if you're a very busy mom, you're also working from home, you have chores, meals to prepare, you can just record no, the lesson or the story that you want your child to practice reading, and the child can listen to it more. Okay. Another thing that we can encourage is play. We can encourage this lifestyle of playing, and then hobbies. So what's a good hobby? Maybe somebody in the house knows a musical instrument. You can encourage your child to tinker with the piano or to play the guitar or to learn the recorder. So encourage the child to have a hobby, something that will help him define himself. So another thing, help him define his family by making a scrapbook of the milestones of the family. This will incorporate a lot of reading, a lot of writing, and arts and craft too. Maybe if you're gifted enough, you can explore art like painting, scribbling, or drawing, calligraphy, and what have you. Even baking, because moms are home now. It's a very good activity that encourages a child to read recipes, to count proportions, that's a little math, and to follow instructions. So when habits become shared, it becomes a family tradition. So maybe now it will be possible for the family to have a movie night. They can recreate a cinema. They'll eat the junk food then. No? And they can talk about different families because they're watching a movie about it. You don't have to experience divorce to learn compassion for a family like that. You can just watch a movie about it. Maybe they can also discover an interest in something like a big jigsaw puzzle, and it could be a game night where they unpack a board game that was stuck in the attic for a long time. So it's a good time now to teach kids about snakes and ladders, and it could be a tournament that will happen weekly, or it could also be a cook-off. No? So what do I mean by that? There are so many things you can learn in the kitchen. You can honor culture like China by learning its cuisine. Kids can learn to taste what they like and discover what they don't like, or they can also learn to change it a little bit, fuse it with Filipino taste, and it will make them not so afraid of the kitchen. Okay. Another thing, maybe since Zoom now is so popular, maybe another tradition could be having online reunions. No? So they can honor and greet the celebrant, or a wedding anniversary. Hopefully not a wedding, but I'm sure somebody's getting married even during lockdown. I don't want them to postpone such a milestone, but we can stay connected, and you can teach kids to respect other members of the family, and you can actually shrink the world. Every member from every part of the world can join in one reunion like this. Okay. Another thing with tradition, it actually builds the family identity. Yeah? So hopefully the child will know that, oh, we always have dinner after mass. So even if it's an online mass, the family will have dinner or lunch depending on the time. Or the child will also say, I cannot play with my friends the online game because it's game night tonight. You would want them. And maybe if you have access to a pool or I don't know, a park, something a little bit outside, the child can visit, might even be part of your house. You have a swing set outside. You can encourage alone time, and that can be a tradition as well. Because I encourage parents to spend time with each child at least once a week. How does that happen? You look at an organizer, a calendar, you plot it. It won't happen listening to me right now and promising yourself mentally. It has to be written so that it gets done. Another thing for health is exercise. This is learning with your body. Now, why is sleep important? Well, if you lack sleep, your judgment is impaired. So, need I say more? And for a growing child, 8 hours is ideal at night because the bones grow longer when they are asleep. Okay. Another thing, you observe the proper posture, an alert stance. No, your body is tilted forward. If you're sitting on a chair, you don't slouch. You try to You try to sit in a chair that doesn't have a backrest so that you know you're breathing better, and you try to breathe from your stomach out. So as deep as you can breathe as possible to introduce more oxygen to the body. And to add more oxygen to the body, do something aerobic before you study. I recommend that well because when they're exercising, even just 15 minutes, there's more oxygen to the brain. They have a burst of adrenaline, and their happy hormones, their endorphins. It actually makes them more ready for a session with me. So you will, if you're seeing a therapist online or a teacher, you can help the teacher engage the child's attention by making the child physically active before the session. They can probably also look at movement routines. So what do I mean by that? I've seen my students show me videos of boy bands, no, in YouTube, and they dance along. I cannot mention one right now because I only saw this in passing, but it's very engaging to the kids. They dance with the band and they memorize, no, the sequence of steps. That's very good for muscle memory. Okay, kids learn very well when they move. I remember when I was younger, if I have to memorize something long, I would pace. So you're inviting your body to be more alert because you're in motion. Another thing, if it's possible, engage in sports or martial arts. Maybe somebody in the family can introduce that to the child. No? What's wonderful about that is there is a respect for rule because each sport has a different prop, they have a different set of skills, they have a different set of rules. No? And for martial arts also, there's a progression. Like how do you know you're getting better from a beginner's stand? So if this is not possible for you, I remember before there are virtual sports sold by, I think it's Nintendo. So maybe you can look at games like that. So the child moves like he is actually playing. Anyway, the brain is so powerful. You can visualize something and your body responds the same way as if it's real. Another thing for exercise is to learn a musical instrument with attention to reading the music sheets. This is another language that you can introduce to the child. And then there's sensitivity to the rhythm, the tempo, and also the tactile. No? If it's playing the piano, how hard they press, how loud the keys should be. So all of these things actually depend on what resources are available. And I hope somebody in your family is like my family. In my family, somebody was exposed to a musical instrument. So it will teach the child to do more than just watch interesting videos in YouTube of young kids playing the piano and the child cannot do the same. Okay. Another one is the lifestyle of learning. First, we teach the child to learn to play, and then we play so that the child learns some more. So, what kind of learning do I want? If I may suggest, make it a lifestyle of reading books every day. So, if the child cannot read, that's a very simple book. But if the child can read already, you can always challenge the child to read a harder book. Don't quit reading to your children. And when finally the child is really very good at reading, you can read beside the child. So you can introduce nonfiction, you can introduce another topic. Because if the child is used to reading beside you, he might ask you, what are you learning new, mommy? Or what are you learning new, dad? So that will also make meal times very interesting because if you're reading something, even a simple book like Chicken Soup for the Soul, there's always a new idea to mention when you are at meals. Okay? Some of these games, uh, for example, a memory game. What's a memory game? You can use a simple, well, this is the real memory game. I hope you can see it. Uh, I have some, they're called farm animals. You can actually, if you can't buy them because National Bookstore doesn't have enough anymore, you can actually print them. You can print them. Just make sure you have two of the same. And the memory game is you cover them and help the child remember enough that he wins the game. He uncovers a pair. So that's a memory game. Sorry, I cannot demonstrate very well in this venue. Dominoes is another good game. I think there's a picture there. Dominoes allow kids to count quickly. They're counting dots and sets and they're matching. No? Jigsaw puzzles. Puzzles are good. No? A jigsaw puzzle will teach a lot. No? A child how to persevere, how to organize, how he will attack the picture, how he will sort them. No? If you can also change to a word puzzle. Some word puzzles like the crossword you see in front of you or the word search encourages the child to be quick scanning for words that he needs, which helps him read faster. Number puzzles are also good, like Sudoku. No, I hope you have those. Anyway, even phones actually have them. So you can explore some apps if you don't have them. Spot the difference is a good thing. Sometimes you can buy them. I go to bookstores a lot. Sometimes you can buy them. If you can buy them, don't write on them, no, because you might have younger children. They can inherit the books of their older brothers and sisters. But essentially, those activity books will help the child work. Speaking of activity books, if you don't want the child to write on them, we can use the plastic cover. Remember the plastic cover that's famous right now for shielding the drugstores and the taxi driver and what have you. You can just cut a plastic cover and put it on top of an activity book and use a whiteboard pen. So that's enough. Now you have a whiteboard marker and the child can have multiple use for the same page. Lego is another puzzle actually. It's more 3D and it introduces construction. So usually there's a design until the child learns to create his own design. What I like about Uno cards, is its versatility. There's a number in front and then there are colors. So you can actually use a lot of card games. Off my mind, I can think of about 10 card games already using the Uno card. So you don't have to only limit yourself to what the directions say. So Uno cards can be a memory game. It can be Go Fish, if you're familiar with those games. It can be Old Maid. It can be Crazy Eights. Don't make it poker. We don't do that. But card games actually are very handy. So when you finally are allowed to travel, when kids are bored in an airport, they can still use card games and they can have fun. I think I'll mention a few more that are not written there, but it might trigger a memory. You might remember how much you loved it. Snakes and Ladders. Do you remember that? I hope you still have, no? You can uncover your board game at home. Clue. Do you remember that? Or is that only for people in their 40s like me? What's interesting about Clue is you have to guess the killer, the weapon, and the scene of the murder. So that's very interesting, and it's really a whole day affair when you're playing it. Pictionary is another good game, and Taboo. I like Taboo specifically because it teaches kids how to use language. Taboo is a game, if you're not familiar with it, that restricts how you describe the word that they have to guess. For example, if the child has to guess airplane, taboo words will be plane and air. So I would have to say this vehicle allows you to travel, above. It's not on land, it's not on water. So I didn't use taboo words and hopefully the child can guess airplane. So it's something like that. That's a good game as well. Children flourish when they have the right resources. Anyway, you're not supposed to behave like a school. You're not supposed to be teacher. You should enjoy also what you're doing with the child. And you have to have this attitude of exploring and learning something new every day. So what happens with the older kids? Maybe it's possible for them to join a virtual book club, because there might be other kids their age who like the same book and it can start friendships. Or maybe you can explore virtual trips, because some museums have opened their exhibits. You can view it online, or they can also watch videos for ideas. Crash Course History is good. You can see that in YouTube and TED Talks. The last part of my talk involves a lifestyle of praying. When a family prays, especially when they pray together, No? Children are learning that parents are accountable to God. No? They also learn that because parents believe in God, they would love to follow His commandments, or they would love to follow what God wants. So that means loving your neighbor as well. No? And when parents are accountable, no, to God, they have faith. They also teach children virtues like honesty, justice, courage, self control, perseverance, and compassion. So it becomes a lifestyle of being grateful together, no? An attitude of gratitude that brings the family together. Maybe their simple prayer at night is a thank you, and thank you for what? No? And it also is, no, an attitude of praying for each other. Because the way you avoid things like narcissism and depression is to think of another person. And later on, children will learn that character is what you do when no one is watching. So most of us actually had this idea that, how we were raised as children changed or limited us in terms of our ability to become good parents. But that's not the case. Now, when I encountered these sayings, I was very encouraged. Now, Marianne Williamson said, we're not held back by love we didn't receive, but we are held back by love we're not giving. And St. Clair said, we become who we love. So we have to choose carefully who we love. And as we love, we will teach children more than just unconditional love. We will teach them to love the right things. And hopefully it nurtures their character. So my prayer for all of you, the parents, the teachers, the therapists, and the rest of the household, is that you can raise young minds that are curious, competent, courageous, and compassionate. Thank you for listening.
Wow, thank you so much, Romina. We have a total of 170 plus viewers tonight on
Salamat.
Zoom, on YouTube, and on Facebook.
Wow.
And I am sure they have questions. So right now, I am going to open the floor for questions. You can type your questions on the chat box and in the comment section on YouTube and on Facebook. And we also have here tonight Dr. Chanda Uy. She's a pediatrician from Bukidnon. She can answer to some of the questions. A lot of people are thanking you, Romina. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. They have learned a lot. Sabina said. Katrina said thank you.
Thank you.
While I wait for the questions, can I just read some comments, Romina? Tito said, it is tough for the parents adjusting in the work from home and adjusting to the situation where the kids cannot distinguish when you are working and when you are a parent.
It's a very legitimate concern. That's why an office for the parent and a study for a child helps. No? It creates boundaries.
Chester said praying. Wow, this is a very good, important reminder. Thanks. Ken said most kids now are into tabs and phones, no more board games.
That's actually another thing they have to learn. They have to learn to use their tablets and computers another way. I'm not strict about restricting that. I'm just trying to distract them from their usual habits. Since March, I'm sure there are habits that you really want to replace, like the sleeping habits, the gadget use. I just want them to use it another way. I help even kids who are in grade 9, 10. Um, they're using their computers a lot. So I help them look at TED Talks. So it's the same medium, but I'm challenging them now to use a different way. No? They are engaging with ideas instead of games and friends.
Yeah. Would it also help if we sort of like give them a limit? Okay, you can use your gadget for, let's say, 15 minutes.
The problem with limits is sometimes they like to break the rule. No? I'd rather you encourage them to help you with dinner, or you ask them to help you bake, or you make the computers stay in a public place. No? The screen should face anybody who passes. So that already is discouraging the child from being distracted by even unfavorable websites. No? So you want the child, let's say you have a pool, no? And the child has been on the computer so long, and you can say, go with me, let's swim. So at least the child is thinking, I want time with mom, so I go to the pool with her. So he puts it down on his own. We can't say the gadgets are really evil, no? Even if we're not happy with the way they're used. We just have to teach them how to use it properly, especially now. They will be using a lot of gadgets actually. My prayer is you have books too, because functional MRIs say that reading paper is different from reading gadget. So you still want kids to read books they can touch, not just um, handouts given by their schools online.
Okay. We have questions coming in. We have a question from Sabina. Can you
Mhm.
elaborate on how parents should delegate tasks and not responsibility?
So for example, I think my example was the sleeping, right? No, so if it's my responsibility to have a good bedtime routine with my child, the child's task is to sleep. No? But my responsibility includes not making this child nap in the afternoon, especially late afternoon. My responsibility is to limit her high energy activities towards the end of the day, and to give her warm milk, or maybe give her a nice rub, or give her a bedtime story. That's my responsibility. The task for the child is to actually sleep. So it's like that. No? You don't be the parent who will just tell the child study hard and then you leave him alone. No, when you tell the child to study hard, you're with the child. No, you're asking, how are you at your studies? What are you learning new today? Or what's interesting about science today? And then you can say, you can go the route now. In my time, that was not our subject. I'm old enough to do that a lot, and it makes the kids smile. No, when they realize that my time was so much easier, so they usually tease me. That's why you have good grades, because it's easier during your time. So we acknowledge now that there is a generation gap, and the gap is interesting. It's not supposed to be divisive.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. Another question from Titus. What is the chance of a kid growing under horrible parents wind up as horrible parents too?
Well, habits are learned at home. No? The first teacher of values and virtues are the parents. So you cannot avoid that tendency that a husband that abuses physically a wife will raise a son who will eventually abuse his spouse. But that's not the prayer. Please, I don't think any parent intends to make his temper turn his children temperamental. No? So my that's why I put prayer last. If the mindset is towards accountability to a higher good, or a sensitivity to goodness, or a desire to strive to be good, all of those intentions will probably count to good actions as well. So what about you? If you were raised, with an abusive parent, well, there's Abraham Lincoln. He was also abused, but he became a beloved president. He was abused so much, he was left during winter to feed his sister by a father who was depressed because he lost his wife. So imagine, he would grow up like that. He was never educated. He was self-taught. And that's why we now respect, everything that he has accomplished. It's not a sentence. If you didn't like your parents, at least you know. At least you know what not to follow. And hopefully you can find the right mentors or the right environment that will nurture you. That's why I respect this environment so much, because we honor spouses, and children. This is an environment where we watch the kids grow to be somebody like Sabina, who will inspire the next generation someday. So that's nice. You want to find your niche, and you also want to find people who will encourage you to be better.
All right. Another question from Rennie. Rennie, can a child with special needs thrive or learn in a virtual learning environment?
I have to be honest, it's been an adjustment for me as well, because I work with special kids. I had to start watching a child throw tantrums, break things, and roll, and I'm looking at the screen and I cannot physically help. And for people like me, it's frustrating because we know we could handle it faster. And there's going to have to be a good relationship with your therapist and teacher if you have a special child. You need to trust your therapist, and your therapist will need to trust you also. So be trustworthy because you're going to be the hands of your therapist. The good news is they get better. So once you measure something, you improve it. Once you recognize something, you repeat it. Since May, I have been working with a few special kids. I am counting deliberately every day, yeah, a milestone with the parent. It encourages both of us. And so far, I like my kids now. They're back to the old kids I know. So they're resilient. They'll go back. Don't worry. But if it's really impossible, like you cannot physically handle a child, it's also a wake up call as a parent. Because why is another person able to handle your child and you cannot? You're the only one who will never leave the child, actually. So you really have to get more help. You can ask a professional to help you. Maybe you can have a separate session with just the therapist telling you how to handle the child. It's actually, I think, a silver lining now, what's happening right now. Therapists really have to acknowledge that the parents are the last therapist of the kids. So we really have to be good at equipping parents now.
Okay. I'm going to take the last two questions. One question: is it okay to continue with a lifestyle of parents who are both vegetarians, although the child has no problems in eating fruits and veggies, and they give him fish oil supplement? Is it okay to continue with the lifestyle of being a vegetarian?
If you are both vegetarian, I don't think you will be inclined to give your child meat. Is that
Right.
right?
Yeah.
If being a vegetarian allows you to include some fish, then that's fine. No? I do not want a parent to think the child has to eat differently. Anyway, you're giving them supplements. They'll probably need more supplements actually because they're not taking certain kinds of protein. You'll be fine. No? I'm hoping a vegetarian lifestyle includes also a healthier lifestyle, so you have healthier habits. I will not disagree with that decision of the family. They can also turn the child into a vegetarian also. And how wonderful for you if you can manage that lifestyle now. As I said, in Cebu, it's very difficult. We don't have a lot of produce.
Okay. I have another question. This will probably be the last question. I can actually address this question to Dr. Chanda Uy. The question is, what age is it okay to give omega-3? Dr. Chanda, are you here?
Light recommends 12 years and older.
12 years and older.
But professionally, in my case, I look at the child. If the size is big enough and there's an ability to swallow the soft gel, I recommend it earlier. I actually recommend giving omega even earlier, but I guide the parents how to do it because we observe the child's reaction. If you can access brainiums through your friend, why not? So that's even safer. You're just counting how many brainiums you give a day. We're a little bit careful giving omega
Hello.
complex.
Oh, okay. I think Dr. Chanda.
Yes, hello.
Hi, Dr. Chanda. Hello.
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear
Hear,
me?
can
We
hear
hear you.
you, Doc. There is a question
Yes.
to one.
Yes.
What age is it okay to give omega-3?
It depends on the preparation of the omega-3. For our omega-3 in soft gel, I agree with Miss Romina as long as the child can swallow the soft gel. So it is usually on the older girls, 12 years and above. group of the kids. Some can tolerate all the preparation like Neums, which is also only available in US. You can give it to younger age group. So kids starting to take it at 3 years old.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Chanda, and thank you, Doc Romina.
What, doctor?
Sorry. Thank you.
Teacher
Thank you.
Romina.
Yeah, seems like a doctor. Thank you so much, Romina. I am sure that all the parents out there feel different, different in a very good way. I am sure that they feel more loving and more understanding, okay, and more responsible parents after hearing your talk. Thank you so much, Romina. And thank you, wealthy and wise would be tomorrow's talk, which is part of the No Borders Project, Entrepreneurship in the New Normal. To learn more about it, let me call on the co-founder of CZG Philippines, Mr. Ryan Fernandez.
Hi, everyone. Puella, can you see me? Do I sound okay?
Yes, we can see your slides,
Yeah.
but your sound is a bit choppy.
Oh, sorry about that. I think it's also because we were streaming. Um, I'll try
Now
to
we can
speak
hear.
slowly. Okay, okay. Thank you so much, Romina, for that wonderful and informative talk. I think a lot of people learned so much from your sharing tonight. And I know you spoke out of passion as well. So thank you so much, Romina. And hopefully we can invite you again to speak alongside Dr. Chanda in another children's nutrition webinar. I want to also invite everyone to check out another webinar we're doing as part of our mission to empower people, like PJ said, healthy, wealthy, and wise. Tomorrow, one of our other friends will be sharing on the topic of entrepreneurship. A lot of parents are working from home today, and many are wondering how can we actually create new sources of income, supplement what we make, be able to be very productive at home and not worry about uh, having our careers or traditional businesses disrupted. Our friend and associate, Ariel Driz, will cover a special topic tomorrow. You can just take a screenshot and we're going to cover how you can actually build an online business even if you don't have any background in IT or entrepreneurship. He'll be sharing that concept and you're welcome to watch. Uh, the meeting ID is there in the password, but if you don't remember it, you can actually visit our Facebook page. Just look up syzygy.ph, or you can email me at ryan@syzygy.ph. That's syzygy.ph. And you can watch the event tomorrow evening. So once again, thank you so much, Romina, and back to you, PJ.
Thank you so much, Ryan. And by the way, if you want to have an access on Nutrilite, please ask the person who invited you. So that's it for tonight. It has been a very informative and wonderful night. Thank you so much, Romina, again, and Ryan. Thank you for our sponsor, CCG Philippines. Thank you for all our attendees and our audience. It has been a wonderful night. Good night, everyone. God bless and stay well and healthy.